So it's time now to welcome from our Adelaide studios, Reverend Phyllis. Welcome along, Phyllis. I won't even attempt to pronounce the title of your talk.
Thank you, Reverend Bill. It wasn't intended that anyone would be able to say the word as it's written. Did anyone work out what it actually means?
Yes.
Good. Anyone else? No? Well, I did make a little bit harder than is general with this type of meme, as it's called. And you probably have seen this one. And no, it's not going to. And I haven't sorted that out properly. But anyway, I'm hopeful that you will be able to see that. Can you?
Yes.
Okay. So see if you can read that paragraph. I'll give you a minute. How have you done with it? Has anybody got it? Who's seen it before?
No.
Or something similar?
No.
No? Okay, I'll stop there. All right. The message, this has been circulating apparently since 2003. And it's an internet, part of internet trivia that some of us get through Facebook or through emails. But the message actually read, according to a researcher at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in the word are, the only important thing is that the first and last letter are in the right place. The rest can be a total mess and you can still read it without problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. And that reminds me of when I did a few years of teaching way back when I was much younger. We taught a whole word as well as phonetic spelling to help children work out words that weren't so easy to just look at and say. But anyway, going back to the meme, at first glance, it seems legit because you can actually read it, or most of us can. But while the meme contains a grain of truth, the reality is always more complicated, of course. The meme asserts, citing an unnamed Cambridge scientist, that if the first and last letter of a word are in the correct place, you can still read a piece of text. Well, it seems there never was a Cambridge researcher. The earliest form of the meme actually circulated without that particular addition. But there is some science behind why we can read that particular jumbled text. The phenomenon, I'll get it right, has been given a slightly tongue-in-cheek name. The name it's been given, it's hypoglycemia. Strange name. Yes, I think it should be typo erroneous or something similar to that. But anyway, it's hypoglycemia, and you can find that on the internet. And it works because our brains just don't rely on what we see. They absolutely also rely on what we expect to see. But in 2011, apparently researchers in the University of Glasgow conducting unrelated research found that when something is obscure from or unclear to the eye, human minds can predict what they think they're going to see and fill in the blanks. Effectively, our brains construct an incredibly complex jigsaw puzzle using any pieces it can access get access to, and these provided by the context in which we see them, our memories and our other senses. So thinking of that information, it seems to me that when our brain constructs that complex jigsaw using any pieces it can find, It is looking for some sort of order that it can recognise in the scrambled letters in order to make sense of them. And of course, order has been and still is the faculty for this month. In the email that Wayne, I think, sends out on Thursday night to tell us about our program on Sundays, he included several quotes about the faculty of order, one of which was from Alexander Pope, who wrote, "Order is heaven's first law." I liked that one very much. We were also reminded that if there is no order in the cosmos, there would be chaos. Do we instinctively look for order in the universe, in our daily lives? And is order the faculty by which we establish harmony, balance, and right adjustment in our lives? Well, I think it is. Of course, because we have free will, we can also create chaos in our lives. Have you ever noticed that when you are endeavouring to create order in a particular cupboard, my plastics cupboard is one that has to be put into order very frequently. But what I find when I go to do that is that I create more chaos before I get that cupboard sorted. Have you noticed that when you do spring cleaning or clean out the garage, whatever, you're looking for order, but in doing that, you create chaos. But as you work through that chaos, you can recreate order. During my recent time in Coolangatta, where we held our annual general meetings and intensive spiritual education enrichment classes, I noticed how changeable the weather was during that time I was away. Officially, because we started, pardon me, at the end of August, it was officially still winter. But leaving, the weather was much more like winter, wet, cold, windy, miserable, even chaotic, you could say, even though officially, yes, it was spring. Changeable? You certainly could say that about the weather we experienced. But the atmosphere within the group was always sunny, and it was a joy to be able to see people face to face instead of on Zoom like I'm seeing you today. Since I arrived home, the weather's been so much the same. Sunny one day, wet and windy the next. And as I was walking along the beach on one of our sunnier days, I was reflecting on that, and I realised that spring is about changeable weather. We see many changes in other areas of nature as well. I noticed that the birds have a more vigorous song as they welcome the new day in spring. The plants in my garden are showing signs of new growth, and the flowers that are out are expressing their joy in the warmer days and occasional showers, and certainly not complaining about the changeable weather. Not like me, I'm always changing, grizzling, although I know I can't do anything about it. But to me, spring is the transition time between winter and summer, and expresses whether that we as humans relate to one or other of those seasons. And it seems at times chaotic. I don't know about others, but I find myself, yes, complaining about that changeable weather. Nature of all kinds, on the other hand, responds to those changes in an orderly progression in all its wonderful expressions, moving towards regeneration and regrowth. It's been interesting to me to notice how my thinking about spring has also directed my thoughts to consider order, the faculty of order. I'm often amazed at how many times incidents and experiences demonstrated an orderly sequence in my life as I navigate the many areas in which I engage. But these two words, spring and order, seem to occupy my mind in equal proportion, particularly over the period of time since Reverend Bill asked me to do this talk and I was contemplating, what am I going to talk about? And spring was what came up first. And then I thought, well, then I was thinking about spring. I thought, well, that can be chaotic, and yet it's part of the orderly progression of weather throughout the year. So it happens in so many areas of my life. When I look back at what I was teaching when in Coolangatta, I realised part of the subject of the class I was facilitating during that week asked us to look at the importance of vines and the growing of grapes as we considered the statement attributed to Jesus, who said, "I am the vine, you are the branches." And we read that in John 15:5. When we looked at the symbology of this statement, we found many interesting metaphysical references that we can relate in our own lives. And we also learned how important winemaking was in the lives, pardon me, being reminded during the several years my son and his partner, Kiralee, have been owners of a small vineyard in Tasmania. Pardon. There is an orderly progression of tasks that have to be carried out through the year so that the vines are ready in spring to send out new buds, expressing the natural response to the pruning that was done much earlier in the year. The vines are pruned to support them in producing a good yield with the best possible fruit. The pruning is done much like the home gardener will prune their fruit trees or roses. It's done when the plant is dormant. And the pruning helps to reduce disease and encourages air circulation, and it lets in more light when the plant sends out its buds and then its branches. If the plant is not pruned appropriately, then the plant produces lots of foliage that limits the amount of sunlight and the ability to set fruit buds for the coming year. So pruning is just one aspect of that orderly progression of things that my son has found he has to do during the year to support the vines in his vineyard to enable a good vintage. It's a bit like us. We need to prune things from our own lives in order to create the kind of life that we want to live. It may be friends that are no longer supportive of the way of the things that we do. It may be things that we do that we need to prune out of our lives. But there are lots of things that we need to do in order to make our lives more orderly and harmonious. But looking at another example of how order is so important in our lives, I'm sure most of you have seen some or all of the past fortnight plus days that we have been witness to the many orderly traditions of acknowledging the death of one monarch and the accepting of a new monarch. The orderly progression of activities associated with this tradition has been for me awe-inspiring. Watching the thousands of people that were actively engaged in the funeral of the Queen demonstrated a smooth and orderly progression of the daily events. I was just amazed at how that all went so smoothly. The organisers certainly must have used their ability to organise in a systematic way, and they certainly used their wisdom, faith, and imagination faculties, seeing and believing it would all come together smoothly in a way to honour the passing of the Queen. Do you think the organisers had a clear vision of what was to be accomplished? I think a detailed plan was put in place, with the steps thoroughly considered as the decisions were made. But we too have that same ability to plan, to use our faith, our wisdom, and our imagination to create order and harmony in our lives. We can also do the opposite if we use our innate abilities inappropriately, relying on our senses instead of turning within for divine guidance to give us clarity and direction that will guide our actions to create balance and harmony as we adjust our lives to experience outcomes that benefit not just us, but everyone around us. Whether we like it or not, our lives undergo an orderly progression as we mature. And noticing that orderly progression can sometimes be confronting as we consider the number of days we have experienced on this planet Earth. Or it can offer us the opportunity to put a new spring in our life and step and look at new and exciting ways to show up in this world. We are the architects of our own lives, and we have the ability to be creative. Charles Fillmore wrote about creative law this way: the order of creation is from the formless to the formed, from the invisible to the visible. We can create in our minds a formless, something from the formless, and give it form. It's only up to us to do that. If you seem to be experiencing a period of what you would label chaos in your life, know that this may simply be the spring or transition period leading to peace, harmony, and contentment if you are willing to tap into your inner guide, that divine presence within, and knowing for yourself that divine order, which is mind, idea, expression, is a universal law that we can freely access to create the kind of life we as individuals desire. Charles Roth wrote in his book, A 12-Power Meditation Exercise, this: the faculty of order is the department that makes things go right, and not only right, but smoothly, effortlessly, harmoniously. Order, you see, is law. When you ignorantly or compulsively break divine law, you find yourself imprisoned by circumstances. And he also, and that's the end of the quote, and he also related that to when we break our social laws or, within the community, we suffer the consequences of those. So let me finish with another hypoglycemia phrase and see if you can work this one out. Let me go here and okie dokie. There. So see if you can read what I have written in that particular one as an ending to our talk. It's a little bit shorter, so I hope it doesn't take quite so long. Anyone got it? Excellent. Okay, I'll stop share. Would somebody like to tell me what they came up with? Wendy, you had your hand up. Would you like to share, or do you want me to put it back?
No, it's all good. I think it said you have the power. You have the power to turn chaos into order
and harmony.
Well done. Well done. Yes, you have the power to turn chaos into order and harmony.
Yeah.
It's up to you. God bless you all and have a great week.
Oh, thank you, Reverend Phyllis. I love all that sort of approach. That was wonderful. Thank you. Order's over. We've